Will will option routes actually fix Clemson's offense in 2022? Now, Brandon Streeter is now the offensive coordinator because Tony Elliott has left. Kyle Richardson is now the passing game and tight end coordinator. It's got a lot of fans hyped up around these changes because they want to see some improvement over an offense that finished like 100th in the nation, 112th in completion percentage, and 103rd in passing yards, which is no bueno, as you know, if you want to win in this day and age of college football. But one of the things that they've been talking about is option routes. And for me, I'm not a football guy as far as like actually playing on the field, other than playing on Madden. I kind of understand that the player, the wide receiver, has an option to do certain things. They assess it pre-snap and they see where the player is lined up, where the defender is lined up in front of them, and they assess which way that defender may or may not go. They run a part of the route, and based on where that defender leans or cheats to or turns to, they can make a decision over where they want to go. Now, DJ Uiagalelei, by the way, 3 years in, we got to learn his name here. Uiagalelei. DJ says, he tries to explain it, and he says this to the media this week. So here's a quote from DJ. So against cover 2, zone defense with 2 high safeties, a receiver can break this way, and versus another coverage, he can break that way. If he sees another coverage, he can sit, just giving us, the offense, different options on each play to work versus multiple different coverages. Now, Richardson says, for us, I don't want to be locked into a route. There's times you have to lock into routes, and then there are other times where it is, hey, let's give you some options. But in order to do that, you have to play. You can't have 1,000 plays where they're thinking through options, and that's the best thing we've probably done. Is we're going to give them some options in some routes, but we've got to bring it in to this fewer passing concepts and not be out here with this. So basically simplifying the passing concepts, not having, a playbook of 1,000 plays to think through, but also keeping it very complex because it's adding in that wrinkle of more option routes. Streeter says, I think we're definitely doing it more than we have in the past. There's definitely some concepts where we want to be able to adjust the route based on what kind of defense we're getting. So, guys, now that we've heard from the coaching staff, that's the quotes from Kyle Richardson, from DJ Uiagalelei, and from Brandon Streeter. My thought is, okay, I'm going to think of it on maybe one side of it. I'm going to say on this side, I'm thinking, you know what? They need to be able to adjust and not just be stuck in a route that could be terrible for that defense, depending on, how the defense likes to scheme up things and trick you, right? Pre-coverage versus post, or pre-snap versus post-snap could be completely different. And so you need to be able to adjust, right? Mm-hmm. But on the other side of things, I'm thinking to myself, well, what happens when you're not on the same page? And it seems like this kind of situation could cause more situations where you're not on the same page. So that's my biggest concern is, we being Clemson, is Clemson opening themselves up to more situations where the wide receiver and the quarterback are not on the same page? Houston, since you're in the middle, big guy, we'll go with you first.
So I'm going to bring up 3 offenses that have been historically good and point out this. And I want to preface this. Just because I'm mentioning them in the same sentence isn't me saying that Clemson's offense is going to be them in 2022, right? I'm just pointing this out. LSU 2019, Ohio State 2020 and 2021, and Baylor circa 2014. The similarities in those is they had simplified offenses, a minimal amount of routes, and route trees that they went through for choices on this. If you remember and recall, in the national championship game in 2019, what was the most lethal, like outside of them just going to Jamar Chase? LSU, meaning them, what is the most lethal play they ran? It was always across the middle. There was somebody dragging across, and no one was within 12 to 15 yards of them. They would pick up dozens of yards at a time. And that is a route choice that they make. That's based off of a linebacker's coverage of inside or outside leverage. I watched a guy on this a few months ago. It was back when everybody thought Joe Brady was coming to, back to college football. He's not. But part of what makes his offense unique is that concept of, okay, you got to match up with a linebacker on Jamar Chase. You're going to win that matchup. You can send him, sure, but you risk putting him in double coverage if they were playing cover 2. Whereas if you have outside leverage, you're going to drag him across the middle and no one's there. Or if he's playing inside, you're going to have him go to the edge. You might pick up 7, 8, 12 yards with that. It's a variety of different things. The reason I bring up Baylor, they're kind of the ones that helped start all this. Theirs is a variation, obviously a lot of tempo involved. But if you've ever heard of the concept called the deep choice, it's a route tree for deep routes that they were able to do. It's really hard to pull off, and it's kind of the reason why not a lot of people have been as successful running a Browse type offense post Baylor. A lot of the choices are made with deep routes. And then with Ohio State, it's similar to LSU. Simplified playbook. The key is it's not necessarily the greatest quarterback play. It's about the wide receivers selling the absolute crap out of their routes and going hard. Because if the linebacker is going here and then all of a sudden that person you're supposed to be covering is not there and you see a wide open gap, that's a problem to deal with. It's about selling those. And so I think, like I said, Clemson may or may not be that in the future. But I think you can at least open up possibilities of certain situations that you could open up the offense a little bit more by doing that.
Now, I like that comment because as you're talking, I'm thinking of, Al maybe has a better idea about this, but, when you're playing those flag football type games, when you're playing the 7-on-7s, when you have most of your skill positions there, if you open up a situation where the wide receiver has control of where they want to go, I can see scenarios where DJ has to do less, where all he has to do is look over in that direction and say, well, heck, that guy's wide open. Why not just throw it to him? Because the wide receiver really is making the choice versus DJ having to know where he's going. DJ really, Al, am I thinking of this right? Maybe the quarterback doesn't even have to know where they're going. It's just like, I just need to know to look over there to see if you chose right or not. Obviously pre-snap, you want the quarterback to be reading things. Every elite quarterback is doing that. So there might be some anticipation, which will help with your timing. If somebody gets open in a certain area and just sits there and your timing's off, well, he could be sitting there wide open forever. And then by the time you throw it, could be not open. So you definitely want to read it, right? But am I thinking of that right? That maybe this could actually help DJ?
Yeah, it certainly could. I think it's a tricky situation because, like you said, DJ is going to have to process things quicker without a doubt. But this gives the receiver, a chance to get open a lot easier. That last year, that's what everybody complained about. No separation, nobody's open. This should be able to get them open, but DJ is going to have to read pre-snap where his most likely scenarios are to go with the ball, because otherwise he's going to have to stare down all 4 receivers or 3 receivers or however many we have out there at the time, and try to find the open guy, and you might not have time to do that. So you really want to try to find a matchup, maybe 2 matchups at the beginning, pre-snap to kind of see what you're looking at. But it's all about how he's going to process it, and are he and the receiver on the same page, like you mentioned earlier. So it's going to be fun to watch. I think it certainly could be a huge help. But it's weird because you have the Notre Dame game, which we all like to point to, from 2 seasons ago when DJ was so good. And those guys were open, but, Amari Rodgers and Cornell Powell were getting open. But I think they were given like a predetermined route. Hey, you go here so DJ doesn't have to come in here as this freshman quarterback, kind of deer in the headlights. They're going to be here. You throw it to them, and they were able to get open anyways, even though the route was probably predetermined. Okay, so this is a little bit different, where if you don't predetermine a route, now DJ's got to process that. Where's the holes going to be? Are they going to sit? Are they going to do what they need to be doing? So it's all about being on the same page. So it's going to be up to DJ. It's going to be up to the quarterback. And the receivers, of course, have to make the right moves as well. but I think it's up to DJ and how well he processes the information as to whether it's going to work or not and whether it's going to fix the Clemson offense. But I certainly like the simplicity of the offense and just letting the receiver make the play, because it's going to be fun to watch and see how they progress with it. But I think it could certainly be an answer.